Hi, fourth grade. It's your old pal, Miss Glenn here, and I'm so excited to have the chance to read another chapter of Bud Not Buddy with you today. It's been a really tough time for me to not have the chance to read out loud, so I was really excited when Miss Wilson said that I could read chapter 6 with you today. If you haven't already done so, please pause this video and go back and watch Mrs. Ingles' vocab video. It's really helpful to know the meanings of important words that we'll see in our chapter together. And Mrs. Ingle does an excellent job of showing us those words in her videos. So, the things you'll need in order to be successful today are your copy of Bud Not Buddy. Mine's pretty old. Yours definitely has a different cover and probably looks a little crisper. And you need a pen or a pencil. I chose to use my favorite pen, Northeastern. I have tons and tons of these, and I wish I was giving them out as our AR points were going up. If you don't have either of these things, please take a second right now to go and get them. I will sit here and sing a song. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Oh, you're back. Hopefully you enjoyed my song and you now have the materials you need to be successful. As we are reading today, there are a few things I want you to think about. Sorry for that. One of the things we'll be considering really closely is how Bud is developing as a character. We've now spent 5 chapters with him. We've seen him go through some very interesting situations that most 10-year-olds are not exposed to. So we'll be looking for some vocab words to describe his character traits. I also want you to be thinking about what you're learning about the setting of this story. Right? We know it's during the Great Depression. We know it's in Michigan, but there's some new information that's added today. And finally, looking for figurative language. So, big 3. Bud as a character, setting, figurative language. Let's jump in. Chapter 6 starts for me on page 45. I'm hopeful that it's the same for you as well. Okay, I got my pen ready to rock and roll. Page 45, chapter 6. Uh-oh. My eyes opened, and I could see the sun behind the branch of a Christmas tree. I jumped up, folded my blanket inside my suitcase, hid it, and started running the 6 or 7 blocks down to the mission. Quick pause. A mission is like a food bank or a food pantry. 2 weeks ago in info, you learned about this, and hopefully you have that picture in your mind. We know that Bud is running and he's trying to get there on time because those photographs we looked at showed really, really long lines. Pretty important for the setting of the story. I've already annotated this, but please underline running the 6 or 7 blocks down to the mission. Okay. I turned the corner and said, "Phew!" There were still people lining up, waiting. I started walking along the line. The end was a lot farther away than I thought. The line turned all the way around 2 corners, then crossed, turn the page, top of 46, over one street before I saw the last person. Shucks. I walked up to get in line behind him. He said, "Line's closed. These here folks are the last ones." He pointed at a man standing next to a woman who was carrying a baby. I said, but sir." He said, "But nothing. Line's closed. These here folks are the last one." It was time to start lying. If I didn't get any food now, I'd have to steal something out of someone's garbage, or I wouldn't be able to eat until the mission opened for supper. Hello, setting of Great Depression. Annotate, please. I said, "Sir, The man raised his hand and said, "Look, kid, everybody's got a story and everybody knows the rules. The line closes at 7 o'clock. How's it fair to these people who've been here since 5 o'clock that you can sleep until—" He looked at his wristwatch. "Until 7:15, then come busting down here expecting to eat. You think you got some kind of special privilege just because you're skinny and raggedy? Look in the line. There's lots of folks just like you. You ain't the worst. Supper starts at 6 p.m., but you see how things is. If you plan on getting fed, you better be in line by 4. Now get out of here before I get rough with you." Oh, shucks, being hungry for a whole day is about as bad as it can get. I said, "But..." He reached in his pocket and pulled something out that looked like a heavy black strap and slapped it across his hand. Uh-oh. Here we go again, toward the top of 47. He said, "That's it. No more talk. You opened your mouth one time too many. You rotten kids today don't listen to no one, but I'm going to show you something that'll improve your hearing." He slapped the strap on his hand and started walking toward me. Okay, so again, like Great Depression setting. We've got people in line. Also this stranger who's threatening to beat Bud. A little different than how things are in 2020. I was wrong when I said being hungry for a day is about as bad as it can get. Being hungry plus having a big knot on your head from a black leather strap would be even worse. I backed away, but only got 2 steps before I felt a giant warm hand around my neck from behind. I looked up to see whose doggone hand was so doggone big and why they'd put it around my neck. A very tall, square-shaped man in blue overalls looked down at me and said, "Clarence, what took you so long?" I got ready to say, "My name's not Clarence, and please don't choke me, sir. I'll leave." But as soon as I opened my mouth, he gave my head a shake and said, "I told you to hurry back. Now where have you been?" He gave me a shove and said, "Get back in line with your mama." I looked up and down the line to see who was supposed to be my mama, when a woman pointed her finger at her feet and said, "Clarence, you get over here right now." There were 2 little kids hanging on to her skirt. Top of page 48. I walked over to where she was, and she gave me a good hard smack on the head. Shucks, for someone who was just pretending to be my mama, she sure did slap me a good one. I said, "Ow!" The big square man who grabbed my neck looked at the man with the strap and said, "Boy had to go use the crapper. I told him not to waste time. Like you said, these kids today don't listen to nobody." The strap man looked at the size of the man who called me Clarence and walked back to the end of the line. When the overall man got back in line, I said, "Thank you, sir. I really tried to get, but he popped me in the back of the head hard and said, 'Next time, don't be gone so long.'" The 2 little kids busted out laughing and said, "Na na 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 na, Claire's got a licking, Claire's got a licking." I told them, "Shut up and don't call me." Then both my pretend papa and my pretend mama smacked my head. She looked at the people direct behind us and said, "Oh, mercy, when they get to be this age." The people weren't too happy about me taking cuts in the line, but when they looked at how big my pretend daddy was, and they saw how hard him and my pretend mama were going upside my head, they decided they wouldn't say anything. So I'm going to pause here at page 48, and I just want us to take a second and summarize what happened. So we know that Bud woke up. He was sleeping under a Christmas tree outside of the library, and he was late to get in line to the mission. Because of the setting of the Great Depression, because we know that people were really struggling at that time, the line was very long, and they closed it at 7 o'clock. Bud missed the cutoff, and he wasn't going to be able to eat for the day. So what? Oh, hello, alert. Just really excited that I'm reading, I guess. Think about what then happened with this family. At the bottom of page 48, please take a minute to jot down a summary of what the family did for Bud. I'll just sit here. I won't sing this time. Only in my head. Bud's been catching a lot of very lucky breaks. People are looking out for him and really caring for him. I wonder how that's connected to his character traits. As we read the next section, we'll continue to think about that setting, but I'm going to push us a little bit more to think about the character traits that Bud's showing. We're at the top of page 49. I was grateful to these people, but I wish they'd quit popping me in the head. And it seems like with all the names in the world, they could have come up with a better one for me than Clarence. I stood in line with my pretend family for a long, long time. Everybody was very quiet about standing in line. Even my pretend brother and sister and all the other kids. When we finally got around the last corner and could see the door and folks going in it, it seemed like a bubble busted, and people started laughing and talking. The main thing people were talking about was the great big sign that was hanging over the building. It showed a gigantic picture of a family of 4 rich white people sitting in a car driving somewhere. You could tell it was a family because they all looked exactly alike. The only difference amongst them was that the daddy had a big head and a hat, and the mama had the same head with a woman's hat, and the girl had 2 big yellow pigtails coming out from above her ears. They all had big shiny teeth and big shiny eyes and big shiny cheeks and big shiny smiles. Shucks, you'd need to squint your eyes if that shiny family drove anywhere near you. You could tell they were rich because the car looked like it had room for 8 or 9 more people in it, and because they had movie star clothes on. The woman was wearing a coat with a hunk of fur around the neck, and the man was wearing a suit and a tie, and the kids looked like they were wearing $10 a piece jackets. Keep in mind, $10 back then was like, I don't know, $200, $300 now. So these kids are looking fancy. Top of page 50. Writ about their car in fancy letters, it said, "There's no place like America today." My pretend daddy read it and said, well, you've got to give them credit. You wouldn't expect that they'd have the nerve to come down here and tell the truth. When we finally got in the building, it was worth the wait. The first thing you noticed when you got inside was how big the place was, and how many people were in it and how quiet it was. The only sound you could hear was when someone scraped a spoon across the bottom of their bowl, or pulled a chair in, or put one back, or when people in front of you dragged their feet on the floor, moving up to where they were spooning out the food. After we'd picked up our spoons and bowls, a lady dug a mess of oatmeal out of a giant pot and swapped it down into our bowls. She smiled and said, "I hope you enjoy." Me and my pretend family all said, "Thank you, ma'am." Then a man put 2 pieces of bread and an apple and a big glass of milk on your tray and said, "Please read the signs to your children. Thank you." We all said, "Thank you, sir." Then we walked past some signs that someone stuck up on the wall. One said, "Please do not smoke." Another said, "Please eat as quickly and quietly as possible." Another one said, "Please be considerate and patient. Clean up after yourself. Your neighbors will be eating after you." And the last one said, "We're terribly sorry, but we have no work available." We know that this is the Great Depression, and that this food pantry, this soup kitchen, is going to be really busy with people looking for free food. My pretend daddy read the signs to my pretend brother and sister, and we all sat at a long table with strangers on both sides of us. The oatmeal was delicious. I poured in some of my milk into it so it wouldn't be so lumpy, and mixed it all together. My pretend mother opened her pocketbook and took out a little brown envelope. She reached inside of it and sprinkled something onto my pretend brother and sister's oatmeal, and then said, "I know it's not as much as you normally get, but I wanted to ask if you minded sharing some with Clarence." They pouted and gave me a couple of dirty looks. My pretend mother said, "Good," and emptied the rest of the envelope over my oatmeal. Brown sugar. Shucks, I didn't even mind them calling me Clarence anymore. I said, "Thank you, Mama, ma'am." She and my pretend daddy laughed, and he said, "It took you long enough to catch on, Clarence." He acted like he was going to smack me again, but he didn't. After we'd finished all our food, we'd put our bowls up, and I thanked my pretend family again. I asked them, "Are you going to be coming back for supper?" My pretend mama said, "No, dear, we only come here mornings. But you make sure you get here plenty early, you hear?" Top of page 52. I said, "Yes, Mama. I mean, ma'am." I watched them walking away. My pretend brother looked back at me and stuck out his tongue, then reached up and took my pretend mother's hand. I couldn't really blame him. I don't think I'd be real happy about sharing my brown sugar and my folks with any strange kids either. Thank you for joining me on this dramatic reading of Chapter 6. Again, the things we were thinking about was the setting of the Great Depression. We saw that play a very important role throughout this entire chapter. We also are starting to think about what we learned about Bud. In this chapter, and as you're reflecting on it, I want you to think, is Bud mature? Is Bud acting his age? In different chapters, and even in different parts of different chapters, you might say yes or you might say no. Consider that. Christopher Paul Curtis didn't use a ton of figurative language in this chapter, right? But we do know that he was very intentional with some of the words and images that he included to help us visualize what things were like during the Great Depression and in this soup kitchen in particular. Think, why did he mention how long the line was? Why did he go into such detail about the food that they get? Why did he talk about that billboard? Everything he does for a reason. I had a wonderful time reading with you today, even though I was sitting alone in this room, like a cool girl. I hope that you enjoyed this reading as well, and I am looking forward to getting back with you in a few chapters. See you later, fourth graders. I miss you all so, so much. Bye.